I'd like to make a general argument. It's a philosophical argument with sort of scientific ramifications with it. When I'm making this argument, though, I want to make the statement that it doesn't. This is the kind of philosophical argument that I tend to do these days. It's not one that says this is the case. It says this is a possible consequence of this line of reasoning, which would fall in pretty good line. And given the informational overload of potentialities that we face in non-mainstream media, I'd say that it's a fairly reasonable way to argue. So first off, uh, I would say look at the nature of the Denver, Colorado airport, how it's high up in the mountains. It has um, potential deep underground bunkers. It has these strange murals that are very cryptic. If you haven't looked at them, I'd suggest you do. Um, Almost revelation style symbolism. There's like a white pale horse out in the in front of the airport that actually killed a person. The designer of the horse actually, the horse fell on him and killed him, from my understanding. Anyways, strange symbolism that relates to, kind of revelations like things. Um, then I'd point to the nature of the ice age cycles, which tend to take place every 10,000 approximate years, and you have many um, major, well, there's still major-ish cycles every about 3,600 years. Now, I'd say, I mean, rather often we focus on the climactic weather of this planet, and we don't look at the sun and its impacts with solar flares and so forth. And I'd say that that's one thing to look at. The sun seems to have major impacts on the nature of the weather cycle on our planet. Now, often that's overlooked, and it ought not be, in my opinion. Things like global warming, which I'm saying I don't know if it exists or not necessarily, seems to have some really weird credentiality issues, but I won't say it's not real on the whole. But I'd say rather point to the sun to find the true nature of its it. Um, so we have these different warming and cooling cycles that are real, and they seem to happen over and over again. I mean, they're about as real as as scientists are gonna concur over that period of history through ice testing, sampling, and so forth. Um, and we have this number of cultures suggesting that there's a fairly major turning point around this period of time, and I'd say it relates to astrological things. In the indigenous cultures, you hear about the blue and red star Kachina, and you um, hear about the particular planetary alignments and so forth that seem to relate to this. Now, another major thing is the electric universe hypothesis that I think is at least partially legitimate. It doesn't necessitate that there's not truth to the relativity school and dark matter and dark energy and these sorts of things. I'm not saying that those things don't necessarily exist, but I do think that electromagnetism is undervalued in its consequence of how the overall universe holds itself together. In particular, in relationship to what I'm talking about, the electromagnetism of the sun. So it's at least plausible to think about another star and or planet that passes by the sun and has an electromagnetic charge, and similarly one to the earth. And there is at least some decent thinking going in to the scarring of Mars being related to another planetary body, or even sun-like body, but it doesn't have to be, probably planetary body, passing near Mars, creating the scarring instead of rivers or something like that. Even comets don't make much sense in that sense. There's really not a good explanation as to why there's so much scarring on Mars that doesn't look like asteroid impacts. It looks like there's some sort of stream, but electric filaments also make that sort of thing happen. In other words, I'm suggesting that there's non-ordinary planetary arrangements that seem to be happening, in my opinion. One possibility of which is that there's a superordinary planetary orbit that transits the sun or near the sun every, potentially 3,600 years or 10,000 years. And that could, in fact, cause this planetary scarring, could cause the cave paintings that we see with what look like a thunderbolt or a Zeus spear. I forget what those are called. They're like a staff. And there's many of those cave paintings that are almost found unanimously across the planet. You have this relationship to Antichrist being related to earth changes and so forth. I'd say that's transcultural, which is interesting. And so, and often, at least historically, we can at least ponder the notion that some of these spiritual notions are related to astrological bodies, that is, super earth objects that come into, not even contact with earth, but are seen by the eye, and it's suggested to be godlike. And it would make particularly good sense that I won't say that. It's at least plausible to think that why these cave paintings, why these warnings are issued about this time have to do with another body passing near ours that is electrically charged. This could be Nibiru or something like that. Now, that's just a name, doesn't mean much to me, but it could be causing the regular cycles of activity of heat and cooling, which is related to the sun, I'd say, the electromagnetism between potentially this object and the sun and our Earth. So it's just a thought to consider. Be well.